Welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Playbook podcast. And yeah, we are back after a brief hiatus, wherein we were I think more than a month or so since we released any videos. And yeah, after a very intense period where we churned out a lot of videos during the women's Euros, we're back again to preview the women's ODI World Cup, which is going to kick off in 10 days, exactly 10 days. And yeah, we have with us, I'm proud to say, for our first guest in the series, we have a near and dear friend of mine. His name is Kshitij Ojha. And yeah, we got to know each other through cricket Twitter. That's, I think it's a pretty close space. But yeah, that's how I came to know about him. And he was looking for a co-host for his podcast, and that's how we uh, got to know each other. And yeah, I would like to say that we are near and dear friends as a result of that, even though that podcast went on a break of sorts, let's just say. And yeah, he's here to preview India, the Indian women's team, and he has like a couple of years experience, writing. He's a journalist and he's written about cricket as well before, and he has I would say he's an expert in women's cricket, like at least more than the two of us combined. Let me put it that way. And I think we're recording on a pretty auspicious day, seeing as Smriti Mandana became the fastest Indian to hit an ODI century ever, hitting a century in 50 balls. So yeah, and yeah, Kshitij was very happy. Let me put it that way.
I mean, yes.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
else
So
do you
like, I mean,
expect me
you
to
want to
say
speak about today's
about that
game?
knock?
Yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, if you want to start off by speaking about today's game, you can do that. Like, I mean, it's pretty unstructured because this is the first thing. So, if you want to speak about how she played today, that's also a great thing to start.
Okay, yeah. So, thank you for having me, first of all. I mean, it's my pleasure that you have sort of chosen me to preview uh, the Indian women's team for the World Cup. Uh, Talking about today, specifically Smriti's knock, I think it was coming. I remember sharing this thought with someone again on Twitter itself when the BCCI posted a video of Smriti sort of practicing hard hits, and she was, I mean, it looked like she was clearing the boundaries with ease and everything, right? So at that point of time, I sort of mentioned this fact that it would be a great for the Indian team if Smriti sort of goes hard inside the power play and sort of uh, plays aggressive cricket because that would help Pratika play her game as well. And we have seen through the series, at least in the first two games, that they got beautiful partnerships in the first two games. Today, Pratika didn't quite do well, but that's a different thing. So yeah, I mean, I quite like this new avatar of Smriti Mandana because that gives India the best opportunity to sort of when they bat to you know to punch the heavyweights, so to say, because the last World Cup 2022 it wasn't the best for the team and they struggled against the bigger teams. So this time around, I think Smriti adopting a new approach is going to sort of make them really, the opposition will also fear this approach because then they will be worried about, okay, what if Smriti gets to a flyer? What happens then if India's batting first? Because, they also know that Pratika is there to solidify, the innings from the other end. So that is something that, that will occur, that should occur well for the team in the World Cup. So yeah, these are my sort of initial thoughts about today's knock as well as what can happen, what we can expect in the World Cup as well.
Yeah, you made this observation, right? She came out to bat today, especially with short sleeves. Normally, she bats with a long sleeve jersey, so like it's kind of signaling her intent to,
Yes.
go at the target, the big target, and it showed also in the knock that she played today. So yeah, I think I think India's campaign will go the way how Smriti plays, right? I think that's a pretty obvious fact for anyone uh, to like. I think she's the linchpin of the batting, and I think that's fair for everyone to see, and I think everyone will be batting around her as a result. So I mean, this is just to transition on to our next question, or the first question, let's put it that way. This will be the fourth time we're hosting a World Cup. So, interestingly enough, we've hosted the World Cup in 1978, 1997, and in 2013. So, before I mean, the conventional belief would be that we hosted a World Cup for the first time in 1987, when the men's World Cup was held in India and Pakistan for the first time outside of England. Let's put it that way. So, what are the there will be different expectations, at least in this World Cup, compared to the previous World Cup. So what do you think is different about the team's preparation or mindset compared to the previous editions?
Right. So I got the gist of the question. Your voice was still breaking. So sort that out.
Yeah,
But to answer your
yeah,
question, yeah, to answer your question, I think, look, in 1978, when India hosted the World Cup for the very first time, uh, and it was well before the 1983 World Cup that India hosted for not 1980. When was it? 1980. Seven was the first time India hosted the World Cup,
87.
the men's World Cup, right? Uh,
Yeah,
so
correct.
yeah,
Along with
and so
Pakistan.
9 years earlier they hosted the Women's World Cup. So it was again, it was a last minute call to host the World Cup in India. And at that point of time, as we all know, that BCCI wasn't controlling, women's cricket at all, right? So the last minute decision to host the World Cup, and there was a certain teams that came up. India also, played, but then it was, you can say, informal in a way. There were players. Yeah, I mean, we had the Shubhangi Kulkarnis and we have the Edina Iduji, right? We have come to heard their names only recently, right? Shubhangi Kulkarni was one of the selectors recently, and Edina Iduji was part of the committee that was overseeing cricket after what had happened in the IPL, right? So yeah, those were the cricketers that came through that World Cup. Then you talked about 1997 as well. So interesting fact is that in 2013 India hosted the World Cup just in one city, and that was in Bombay. The whole tournament was played in Bombay on three different venues. This time we are going to have five venues across two different nations, four in India and one in Sri Lanka. The 1997 World Cup actually was played in at least 10 different venues, and there were 11 teams. So more teams in 1997 and more venues in 1997 compared to 2025. India also performed quite well. They
Wow.
reached the semi-finals. They lost to Australia. Uh, and we had the likes of the Neetu Devi, who selected the team for this World Cup. She was one of the players who was quite good that time. But again, the structure again was not very formal. We did not have as many games prior to the World Cup or anything like that. But still, the kind of cricket they played in that World Cup was encouraging in a way, because that sort of gave rise to players like Mithali Raj and Jhulan Goswami, who made their debut, soon after in 1999 and 2000 respectively, right? So that is it. 2013. Now, 2013 is something that again many won't remember. People, if you sort of watch the Star Sports episode around the Women's World Cup, when they sort of formally introduced the World Cup with Yuvraj Singh, Smriti Mandana, Harmanpreet, Mithali Raj, and everyone sort of talked about how the players talked about how Yuvraj's 2011 World Cup inspires them, because the World Cup is at home, right? But before this, the 2013 World Cup was at home, right? It was just two years after India lifted the World Cup, the men's World Cup at home. But India's performance in that World Cup was remarkably pathetic, to say the least, because they won against the West Indies, but they shockingly lost to Sri Lanka. And that game, I mean, they weren't meant to lose that game, but they lost to Sri Lanka. They couldn't qualify for the next round. So the kind of hype, the kind of things that a home World Cup needed from the team, it wasn't there in 2013. Again, the issue of, and that time around, the game was well adopted by the BCCI. The women's cricket was under BCCI, and everything was there. But again, the number of games and everything else, those things were still there. They weren't playing that many games. But still, to lose to Sri Lanka in that World Cup, who was still a very young team, was quite, you can say, like Hong Kong beating this. or rather the USA beating Pakistan in last year's T20 World Cup to make it more relevant. So that kind of a result, as far as women's cricket is concerned. So yeah, India couldn't really catch up because that was the time which I believe where if they had done well, even if they had reached the semis, that would have created really strong waves with respect to women's cricket in India, and that would have also given way to women's IPL a lot earlier than what we, got. It took 10 more years to, for BCCI to formally introduce the women's IPL, right? So those things could have been advanced a decade earlier, right? So yeah, I mean that those are the things. And now coming to 2025, uh, interestingly, India's playing a series right now at home to sort of, and this is sort of talked about, as a practice before the World Cup, and they're playing the best team in the world. But again, if you look back at their preparation for the World Cup, they have sort of tried out a lot of players, and they do not have experienced players who have played enough number of ODI cricket before this, because they have, like, Charani made her debut in the Tri Series that was held in May in Sri Lanka, right? Kranti God made her debut again, same Sri Lanka series. So your bowling attack is basically pretty new. And even when you look at the batters, Pratika Rawal made her debut like 6 months ago, right? And you do not have a wicket keeper since Yastika Bhatia got injured. You have picked a wicket keeper who hasn't really played ODI cricket at all. So, in terms of preparation for the World Cup after the 2022 World Cup, what happened there? And if you look back at the 2024 T20 World Cup and how badly they played in that World Cup as well, the kind of preparation and everything, uh, it doesn't really paint a good picture. I mean, the individual talents, like we talked about Smriti Mandana and Harmanpreet Kaur, I mean, those talents are there. But you do not win World Cups, based on an individual's, performance, like we saw in 2017, right? Because Harmanpreet knock in the semi-final, paved the way for India to reach the finals, but they choked in the final, literally choked in the final. If there was ever a meaning of choking in a current situation, they choked. I mean, they couldn't chase down 50 odd runs with so many overs to left, and they lost 8 wickets, right? So, those are the kind of things that India needed to see more. And people will say WPL aa gaya hai, so the players are now more experienced in dealing with pressure situation and everything. But recently, you know, uh, in a T20I against England, in England, they were chasing a decent, like a paltry total of 145, 150, and then 8 wickets left. Smithy was playing with Harman, and they couldn't close down the chase. So, still, when you talk about chasing, there's still an issue, right? So, again, for me, if I have to look at how they will perform or how they are going to go about things in the World Cup, I just feel like I do not have enough trust in them. And as we all know, this is the year of the underdogs. But I don't see this Indian women's cricket team continuing that trend. So that are my thoughts with respect to how they're gonna go in this World Cup, basically. Yeah.
I mean, I think we've reached a stage wherein the Indian women's team should not be considered as an underdog. I think they are at a good enough level that they should not be underdogs. I don't know whether
In
anyone
the
else
in
has
the
different thoughts on that, but
in any women's World Cup, for me,
hmm,
Australia are always the front runners, and the rest of the teams are always the underdogs. So if anyone
yeah,
else
that's.
wins the
I mean,
World Cup, it
uh,
is a shock result
okay, maybe
for
from
me at
that
least.
perspective, yeah, I understand from that perspective, yeah, because yeah, that makes sense. But I'm saying like also like we should be expecting better, right? I don't think like from that perspective, I'm just going by. Like I think the team is such. I mean, it's a good enough team to at least challenge Australia. And they just handed Australia their biggest ever defeat in an international match just 2 3 days back. So I think the expectation should be more. I would say, like from that perspective. I don't know about you. Whether you have any different thoughts, right?
No, I think you're right, especially given what Kshitij highlighted, that how the history of the team. If you wait, I hope you can hear me, or do I also have to
I can hear you. Oh,
bring
uska
it
connection is keep going.
pace?
Ashis's connection keep going.
ठीक है ठीक है. Okay, so no, so I was saying, given how you highlighted the trend of the women's team over the years, and with the context of them hosting all the World Cups as well, and also the context surrounding this current women's team from the past few cycles, from the new head coach, and then the recent T20 World Cup, and then the new players coming in, Smriti's form, and all of that. Also, I agree. I agree with the fact that compared to Australia, all other teams are looked at as underdogs. Given also the T20 World Cup recently, but India also should, as hosts especially, should, at least they themselves should think of themselves as a team that is there to challenge Australia, like they are trying to in this series. So even if we as fans have this sort of mentality, I hope the team doesn't have this mentality. Is what I'm trying to say.
No, I mean, I do agree with you, and I'm quite sure that Amol Majumdar and Harmanpreet Kaur are thinking like that, because if they are not, then why they are playing, right? So, but the thing is that when you look at when you say a home World Cup, is it really a home World Cup? Because this Indian team has played in when we're talking about one day cricket, this Indian team has played in Chennai one day. This Indian team has played in Baroda one day cricket. This Indian team has played in Lucknow one day cricket, and this Indian team has played a couple of ODIs at Wankhede. No, not even Wankhede. So they have played a T20 as a DY Patil. So basically, you made them play in the last 3 years. You made them play on different venues. You made them play in Ahmedabad. You made them play in Lucknow. You made them play in Baroda. You made them play in Chennai. But when it came to the World Cup, you chose what venues? You chose Indore. You chose Guwahati. You chose Visakhapatnam, and then they also had to play in Colombo. So and and Indore, right? So they haven't played there. And if you watch the game today, they played the WPL last year in Delhi, right? And they are playing a one day international in Delhi after 30 odd years. The last time they played a one day in Delhi was 30 years ago against England. So if you uh, were listening to the commentary, Rachel Haynes kept mentioning the fact that the outfield today was quicker than what it was in Mullapur for the first two ODIs, and how both the teams have struggled to field because the ball was coming quicker than expected, right? And that is why many of the fielders misfielded today. I mean, both the teams. It goes for both the teams. So now, when you go to venue, there before this ODI series, they had a 2 weeks camp in Visakhapatnam, right? But that camp will be when they play the first game in Visakhapatnam. It will already be more than a month since they practice there, right? So even if they got some idea of sort of practicing, they still don't know how the conditions will be because again the months will change, right? So uh, it it still is not, the conditions are as foreign for the Indian team as will be for the other teams. So they are not, it's not that they are at this level and other teams are at this level. Both are on the same level. So if the and consider sort of look at this from what the venues England have chosen for the next year's T20 World Cup, right? England has mostly played on those six venues. They play, bilaterals on those venues, and they also play the 100 there, right? So for them, it's a home World Cup. But for India, I mean, if you're not going to play, haven't played any cricket, and your first game as a team is going to be in that World Cup itself, what home advantage are we talking about? So, I mean, I'm not really sure why they sort of went in with these four venues and not the ones they have already picked. Because even if we say, okay, next year there is a T20 World Cup and you wanted sort of certain venues to host the T20 World Cup, and that is why. But for T20 World Cup, you don't pick more than 6, 7 venues, right? I don't think Baroda is going to host T20 World Cup games. I don't think Chennai is going to host T20 World Cup games. Lucknow, for that matter. And even if Chennai and Lucknow are going to host Baroda, Ahmedabad, कुछ तो देते जहाँ पे they have played before. So doesn't make sense to me, and that is one of the main reasons that I'm not really sure how well they will do.
Yeah, it's like a very interesting point there. Like the disparity of venues at which the team has played where and where they're going to play in the World Cup. I think that disparity is like very stark, right? Like I think you make a very interesting point over how the it's not really a home World Cup, and I think it speaks to how rushed also or like how disorganized the entire the ODI World Cup has come. Like, I mean, if you look at it in terms of like the promotions, not much has been done for it. It's like the team for the squad itself was announced on the same day they announced the men's team for the Asia Cup, and there was not much shine which is given to you're freaking playing a World Cup at home, and this is the treatment which you're
I'll just
giving
add one
to.
thing. I'll just add one thing on
Hmm.
the Asia Cup. The squad was announced on that day because the chief selector and the other two selectors that were there with her, their tenure was ending at the end of the month, right? So they had no choice but to announce the squad then, because otherwise they wouldn't have, they couldn't have announced the squad, because now we are going to have new selectors. So for this month, the Indian women's team don't have selectors at all. There are no selectors, right? So the new selectors are going to be picked on the 30th after the BCCI AGM that is scheduled on 28th. The interviews are going on currently, so the selectors are going to be picked. So any new changes that we might see in the World Cup squad, that will be done by the new chief selector and the new other three selectors that will join her. So that is the reason they announced the squad. You know, they were the first team to announce the World Cup squad, which they generally sort of. India is one of the teams which delays the World Cup announcement squads. So yeah,
Okay, I actually didn't know that was one of the reasons, but I still feel like they could have managed all so many of the aspects of the announcement, not just the announcement, but also the marketing of this thing better, because it's clashing with the Asia Cup, right? So I know there's not much they can do about it, but as the host country and as BCCI, they definitely could have done something to distinguish. I don't know, the fact that the women are also playing in a very important. I would, in my own terms, in a much more important competition than the men are, but I feel like that should have been handled better. At least the marketing aspect of all these things.
yeah, I mean, surely I mean, I anyone who follows women's cricket won't disagree, because it has been a pathetic attempt by the ICC. Even after so many things they have said with respect to how they want to grow the sport, and they haven't really, I mean, there are no actions to see. Even yesterday they released the World Cup theme song, with Shreya Ghoshal, and what we see is only her in the studio singing the song. I mean, we didn't see that sort of a thing for the men's World Cup in 2023. We literally had a whole 3 minute song with Ranveer Singh, enacting in it. So, I mean, these are the kind of things. So, one is the ICC, that they have to, engage with the audience more on their social media handles, right? With promoting the World Cup on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, etc. But BCCI also has a role to play because they're the host country, right? But we haven't seen anything from them when it comes to promoting the game. We do not have holdings in either of the four cities promoting the World Cup, and we do not have any information basically that tells the people of this country that India is hosting a women's cricket World Cup. You go out in Bangalore, you go out in Chennai, you go out in Delhi, and go out in major markets, ask people around, and they won't know about it until you tell them, right? So that is the kind of thing that is still happening with respect to women's cricket. And then, there will be people who will come and, talk about the pay parity and everything, and, take jibes on our team. So, but I mean, BCCI, I do not want to say much, otherwise it's a rant that will keep going throughout the night.
Yeah, no, fully agreed. So we spoke a lot about Smriti Mandhana there. Coming to the captain, this is Harman's first ODI World Cup as captain after taking over from Mithali. So how do you think she's evolved as a leader, both personality wise and tactically?
Uh, Look, so I don't like Herman the player, and that is not because like I hate her. I do. But if you look at her performances, right, in the last 3 4 years, or say from 2022 itself, she scores once in a while, once in a blue moon, and then there is a period that there are no scores at all, right? So she scored a 50 today as well. But before this, against Australia, she had just 150 in 20 innings after her 171 in the 2017 World Cup semi final. So 8 years, just 150 prior to today. So, and when you look at her performances against England, again, 2 centuries, but those 2 centuries came in the last game of the series in 2022 and in 2025 this year, right? So, overall, her performances have been very weak, right? And she's also struggling with injuries. Like today as well, we saw how she was limping after scoring the 50. So she has been struggling with injuries a lot. Even in last year's T20 World Cup, we saw that she wasn't able to play one game. Smriti captained in that game. And again, against Ireland as well, she was rested for the series in which Smriti led. So as far as leadership is concerned, purely on how she leads on the field, I think tactically she's a good captain, not an excellent captain. She has her days where she's just brilliant, like it was in the last game, uh, because she was like with the fields and everything. You can see, right, the kind of field sets and everything. She was executing the plans really well, making the Australians hit, cross-batted shots and everything. So she has her days, but on most days she goes with the flow, right? When you look at the bowling changes and when you look at, you can see a pattern, a clear pattern that, okay, now she's using the paces. Now the next bowler that will come into the attack is Deepti Sharma. Now the next bowler that will come into attack is Radha Yadav, etc., etc. So that happens with her. And if a strong team like Australia and England, if they sort of follow, if they read what Harman has done in the last couple of games, then they can really plan their innings. So that way, I think Harman needs to be proactive, leading the team into the World Cup, because I think with Amanjot, if Amanjot makes a comeback into the team in the 11, that will give her an extra option with the ball. And I hope that she uses herself more as a bowler, because I have seen her started bowling recently during practice. So, and Pratika should bowl as well. So if these players start bowling, then she will get more options, and then she has that mind to take couple of overs from the part timers, because she has done that really well for Mumbai Indians in the WPL. So I'm sure she can do that well for the Indian team as well. So on leadership capabilities alone, I think she has to be on her toes and has to be proactive rather than being reactive, or rather than going with a set plan on because anything can happen, because like I mentioned, you don't know the venues, so you have to think on your feet and you have to make plans on the field rather than going into with a certain plan. Catcha, first 10 overs we are going to do this, or first 20 overs we are going to do this, and then we are going to do that. Coming to a batting, especially her batting, I think is pushing India backwards, because she's the senior player and she needs to take that responsibility of being the captain. So what she does is, now people call out Harleen Deol for taking her time to get going, like, because Harleen takes 20 balls and she has scored only 5 runs or 6 runs or 7 runs, and she with at times with Pratika Rawal we have seen as well. Harman does the same, but no one questions her, and she's your best batter. So if you're taking 20 balls to score 8 runs or 10 runs, I mean, you are stalling the momentum that your openers have got in you, right? So if she changes that, the way she batted today, if she bats like this in the World Cup, irrespective of the situation, then I think India will be in a very good position in most of the games, and they will challenge teams like England and Australia. I'm especially talking about knockouts. If India reaches the knockouts, then that is going to be very crucial how she starts an innings.
Yeah, fair. Like I think you make a very like I think she's the leader and she has to lead from the front. Like you said, like she needs to, you know, excel at least with the batting. Like I mean, I like you don't have I also I don't like her as a leader as well, because a couple of times in these post match interviews she has a tendency to throw certain players under the bus, or youngsters under the bus whenever stuff don't go her way. And I don't think that's a sign of a good leader or captain. That's a personal opinion from me. But yeah, and I've noticed a tendency when it is particularly the case after certain, let's say, disturbing losses. Let me put it that way. So I think there is that. But yeah, I think like as an on-field captain, she's pretty good. Like I mean, maybe an 8 on 10 on that perspective. Not a. I think she could be among the top captains in the World Cup, because even Alyssa Healy is not the greatest tactical captain out there. Yeah, I think you will also mention it,
No, she is the
Kshitij.
best. She
And
she is the, she is the best tactical captain going into the World Cup. That I'll say. Out of all the
yeah,
8 teams, she's the best
yeah,
tactical captain.
definitely. So I think there is that as well. So I think even the aspect that you mentioned, like they will be playing in new venues that will hold them in better stead compared to other teams. Let's put it that way. But I think she's there in the team with her batting, and only recently she's bowling a bit. So I think her batting needs to speak volumes. I think I'm there on you on that point, definitely. So I was thinking, like, you did mention the stat since the 171 in the semi-final. I mean, it's been 8 years since then, and she's scored a 150 in that time against Australia, particularly. But that particular World Cup, let me put it this way, was a very seminal World Cup in a lot of ways, because it showed that India can compete on the on the highest stage, and by reaching a final. And you did mention that they choked and all that in the final, and it happens. I mean that was also like the first women's World Cup which I followed, very religiously. Let me put it that way as well. So I remember the the moments, or the events which happened in that final very very clearly. So since, 2017 till now, what have you seen in terms of the coverage, or in terms of, let me put it this way, is the momentum which has been generated since then? What do you feel can, put a mark on this particular home World Cup?
Right. So look, the kind of journey that India had uh, leading up to the 2017 World Cup. You talked about the kind of coverage and everything, right? So I'll just try to give you a background with respect to how the team sort of went about its business when it comes to the 2017 World Cup, right? Because uh, that will sort of tell us what exactly is going wrong right now when it comes to coverage, right? So India didn't qualify directly for the 2017 World Cup. India had to play the qualifiers. So there was the series between India and Australia, India and Pakistan that was supposed to take place. It did not take place because of the political tensions, and then India had to play the qualifiers, right? And India sort of beat South Africa in the qualifiers, and then it was again Harmanpreet Kaur classic knock in the final that brought India into the World Cup, right? And then Smriti Mandana at that point in time was going through a very rough phase in terms of injury. She had an ACL injury. She was coming back from an ACL injury. She came back, you know, again match against England, scored beautiful 90 odd runs, century against the West Indies. Everything was going well, and then India reached the finals, right? And India were the favorites to win the final for like 75% of the game, right? The last 25% did not happen, right? So if you look at the that World Cup, that was the first World Cup where all the players across all the sides were all professionals. All the players were professionals, right? Which means like everyone was a full-time cricketer. So that was the first World Cup which had all professional players. Uh, it got the coverage that it did because ICC broadcasted all the games live on TV, right, with Star. So it was the first women's 50 over World Cup where all the games were broadcasted, and there was the use of DRS as well, right? So, with terms of that, that was a watershed movement because, uh, DRS and live coverage. So the World Cup reached, you know, homes like, all over the world, right? And India as well. And that is why, when the Indian team, even after losing the World Cup, came to India, they had some visitors on the airport, to greet them, right? Now compare that to what is happening right now. So right now we know that all the games are going to be live on Star Sports and Jio Hotstar, right? But the kind of promotion that is needed, for you to engage with more fans, we do not see that. And it was the same in 2017. We can't talk about 2022 because that was a COVID year, and everything was not proper, right, in New Zealand as well. So that World Cup we can't really talk about because again you can give the excuse of COVID. But 2025 we have everything, right? But still we cannot produce the kind of content that we need to produce to show the world that okay, this time the World Cup is in India and we are going to make sure that this is one of the best World Cups ever. I mean, Bangladesh, did a better job last year hosting the World Cup in Dubai, with everything being the host. They did put out things on their pages, be it on their Twitter profile or on their Instagram profile. BCCI has done absolutely nothing. And ICC, again, their CEO will come to Star Sports and give an interview and talk about number of things. But when you see the actions, kuch hai hi nahi. So in terms of coverage, there is nothing. There is no hype, and not even people are discussing about it, right? And that is the saddest part around this World Cup because we are in 2025 and we are hosting a Women's World Cup. Our team has done well. You know, we haven't beaten Australia, but no one beats Australia anyway. But other than that, we have beaten England in England recently. We haven't lost a home ODI series since last year. We beat the West Indies, we beat New Zealand, we beat South Africa. We also won the Tri Series, Sri Lanka, South Africa. We beat England so we have done things, but still there no hype from the BCCI. The journalists who cover the sport, be it from take the big media outlets, they are not covering Women's World Cup as well. You do not see them talking about different teams, writing preview articles on different teams, players to look out for, etc., putting out content, stats. But if you compare that to a Men's World Cup, you will see 2026 ka aayega T20 World Cup, you will see them writing thousands of articles on different teams, even the associates. But they don't do that for the women's team, and for the Women's World Cup. So yeah, those are the things. I hope it changes next year because England has really shown the way with releasing the tickets so early, announcing the venue so early, and also releasing the promo so early. It's 10 months in advance. So I hope things will change next year. But for this year, I think it's gonna be.
So, I mean, I know we've all been speaking about this ever since so much of the preparations off the field has started for the World Cup. We've all been seeing how subpar it is, and not just for a country like India that has one of the best fans in cricket, but also for a nation that on the pitch is doing very well, and as host nations also. So it is pretty sad to see. But do you think uh, from when the WPL started, women's cricket in India has actually grown a lot more in terms of bringing in fans? So do you think there will be a noticeable shift in the atmosphere and the engagement with the fans from the post WPL era? Do you think that has made a huge impact on World Cup audiences?
Acha, World Cup audience from the fans' point of view. Look, if you look at the crowds during this series, India-Australia series, both in Mullapur and in Delhi today, there is decent crowd in Delhi. And BCCI did absolutely nothing to promote this game. Still, people went and, and the ticket prices were like decent, right? For the World Cup, the ticket prices are even cheaper. Like the cheapest ticket is for $100, right? So the thing is, if BCCI was promoting the event, then you will see full stadiums, full capacity stadiums. But since they haven't done anything to promote the game, people do not know that tickets are on sale. Indian audience do not know, Indian fans do not know that tickets are on sale. Now, when people do not know, if you go to book my show and try to book tickets for India versus England Indore game or India versus Australia Vizag game, you will see tickets are still not sold out. So, and why is that? Because BCI, again, कुछ हुआ ही नहीं है, तो फिर how will fans know that there is a World Cup game in their city? At least promote it on social media so that fans know, or at least promote it on the roads, man. I mean, do something for the people to know that there is a game, right? So if you're not going to do that, no one will know. When it comes to the WPL, what happens is that everyone knows that WPL is going to start, and people know that there is a WPL game. Now, if you look at this year, crowd in Mumbai, there were no crowd, even for MI games. The crowd wasn't the same as that it was in 2023, right? Uh, why? In 2023, the BCCI put banners across Mumbai that WPL is beginning. People knew about the event. People came to the stadium, right? 2025, there was no advertisement, nothing. People did not know about it, and no one, like, there was decent crowd, but not the kind of crowd that we saw in 2023, right? So it's all on the promoters of the game, right? If you do not promote, then the game, you won't see, full capacity stadiums. But I have this hope that once the World Cup begins and India wins the first game and the second game, and India puts up a strong performance, people will know because newspaper will start covering, right? TV will start covering. They will talk about even for 2 minutes or 3 minutes. And then we will also have snippets on Instagram and on Twitter, different, if someone takes a fantastic catch or if something happens that sort, then people will come to know. And then people will know. So for example, if there is a game in Indore and if Australia is playing, even if they're not playing India, if they're playing say New Zealand in Indore, people will know, acha aaj Perry khel rahi hai. And they will go to the stadium to just watch Perry, right? So once they know, they will go. But as of today, I don't see stadiums filling up when the World Cup begins. But once the World Cup begins, I hope that after a couple of games, at least people go to the stadium and sort of support the World Cup.
Yeah, I think what you said there is like pretty pertinent, right? Like how like when you host an event or anything for that matter, you need to do a good enough job of putting it out there to let the people know, yo, there is something going on in your country or in your city for that matter, and yeah, they've not done. And I feel they should have done a much more of a more involved job over here, especially since they were hosting it in like pretty new cities, especially for women's cricket for that matter. It's not like it's not these cities. I mean, at least these games are not going to sell themselves like how men's team would do, especially in Indore or Vizag and Guwahati and what's the fourth city again? I forgot. Which is the fourth city? Kshitij?
Ashish, can't hear you.
Which is the fourth city? I mentioned Indore, Guwahati, and
There's
Vizag.
Guwahati,
Which
there
is
is
the fourth one?
Guwahati, Visakhapatnam, Indore,
Bombay.
Colombo, and Bombay. DY Patil.
Bombay.
Supposed to be
DY
Bangalore,
Patil.
but then
Yeah, so
RCB did its thing. So.
Yeah, that is also like it was like they didn't solve any issue by not hosting any games in Bangalore, by the way. But that's a different thing altogether. Let me put it that way. But yeah, like you're hosting it in pretty new venues for women's cricket, and like you need to do a more of a in terms of marketing, you will have to do more of a job, right? And they've not done that. They've just been very lazy and let me put it this way, laid back in what they've done. And I think it's pretty evident to see. And I mean, like you were also hoping that once the World Cup starts, people get to know and like a more of an organic word of mouth issue happens, or let's put it that way. So I mean, I think up until now, I wouldn't say we've been negative, but we've been very real in what is the state of the World Cup and the coverage, especially. So I want to talk about
Voice
pretty
breaking.
much a very
Mike,
hello.
Mike.
Am I audible now? Yeah, mic is near. Hello. Is it better now?
हाँ, much better. अब हटाना
Okay.
मत वहां से.
Okay. So up until now, I wouldn't say we've been negative, but we've been realistic, or we've told a very real story of what is going on the ground in India, especially with the Women's World Cup in terms of coverage, in terms of whole lot of factors. I want to talk about a more of a positive story over here, let's say. So it's been the emergence of Pratika Rawal as the mainstay opener alongside Smriti Mandana. And it's been a whirlwind story for her from in just 10 months. She's gone from this unknown to being the mainstay of the batting. So what makes the story so remarkable or special? What can you speak about that?
About Pratika.
Yeah.
About Pratika, right? Okay, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, look, everyone has talked about the fact that she is a psychology student and she has a very good mind and she can do this and do that because she is a psychology student, etc., blah, blah, blah. So a lot of things are being said about that. But just about, so look, when she made her debut, not only me, a couple of other people who follow the women's team closely, they were also kind of shocked to see her name in the list when she was announced for the first time in the squad, right? So it did come as a surprise because we didn't see her perform that well for Delhi. She plays for Delhi in domestic cricket, so we hadn't heard of her name at all. And when we talk about the WPL scouting as well, we did not know about that. Okay, there is a player called Pratika Rawal that exists, right? No one knew about her anything. We knew about Raghavi West. We knew about because Raghavi West played in Australia last year. We knew about Priya Punia. Priya Punia is again from Delhi. She had played for Delhi for India before, and she also played in Australia last year, the A series as well as the one day series. But I think she got injured in Australia, and then that paved the way for Pratika Rawal because I think Neetu David had decided that Shefali had enough chances as far as ODI cricket was concerned. Right now, compare the game of Shefali and Pratika. Right, Shefali is considered someone like a Healy, like Alisa Healy. Now, if you look at Alisa Healy, what she did in the World Cup final in 2022, you are people who support Shefali's inclusion, they sort of think about her like that Shefali has the potential to play like that she can change the game, right? She can play 40 balls and she can score 70, 80 runs, or she can play 50 balls, she can score 80 runs, whatever it is, right? But the fact is that despite being in international cricket for 5 years now and playing different formats, she has made a debut in all three formats for India, even Test cricket, and she has done really well in Test cricket, but has been underwhelming in ODIs and T20Is. She had a good England series as far as T20 series is concerned, but then again, if you look at what she did against Australia A recently, she didn't have a very good series again in ODIs. She's that sort of a player who is very good in domestic cricket when it comes to one day format, but as soon as she makes that way up at the international level, she's not the same player, right? So you expect her to go bonkers in the power play kind of game that she has, but she strikes at what, in the in a uh, 70 or 80 ka strike rate, right? So that is not the kind of strike rate that you expect from Shefali because you know her as a basher, right? But she was playing like that. If you watch the series against South Africa at home last year, right? Shefali Verma was just not ready to take on the bowlers in the power play, right? So she wasn't doing her job well. Now, when you look at Pratika, what Pratika gives you is assurance, basically, right? She gives you the assurance. Assurance of what? That she can occupy the crease from one end because she has a good technique and she has some good shots. So, what she and Smriti has done since they have come together at the top of the order is that Smriti attacks and Pratika takes her time and then she puts the bad balls away. It's a different thing that she needs to improve her game against spinners. She needs to start adding shots like sweep shots and behind the wicket shots, etc., etc. But the way she plays the pacers, and the way she maneuvers the field in the power play when there are bad balls and scores those boundaries has worked really well for India because the partnership shows they average 70 odd together since they have started opening together. So Pratika Rawal has in a way improved Smriti's game which wasn't happening for years with Shefali Verma at the top with her, right? So Pratika's inclusion is not only important for Pratika herself, but for Smriti too, you know. And this series itself, you saw how they both went in the first two games, right? 100 in partnership and 70 in partnership. So even if Pratika is not scoring those 50s, she is giving the starts that India needs. And she's, creating that platform for the team, for others like Harleen, for Harman, for Jemmy, for Amanjot, for Deepti to sort of carry that momentum, right? Because Smriti can play freely and others can play around, that attacking zone of Smriti Mandana. Even today, India has reached within the target, right? 40 runs. So why that happened? Because Smriti played that kind of cricket, that brand of cricket. So for me, what Pratika has done is Pratika has made Smriti understand her true potential in a way. So, and that wasn't happening because what Smriti used to think when Shefali was there, that Shefali wo kar legi, I can play my game. Because last year, if you watch that first ODI against South Africa, I kept on tweeting through the day that Smriti needs to take the fucking game on. So, sorry for the bad word. So she was so slow, but she improved her strike rate after going past 50, 60, 70, right? But now if you look at Smriti's batting, it's another level. And you know what she can achieve now. So this is what Pratika gives this team now. That assurance that, she is there and India, more often than not, will provide, at the top, they will get good starts.
Yeah, that's actually quite a good insight on how Pratika has helped this team grow into this sort of new get this new identity over the past few months, and how she's helped Smriti also. Definitely, we've spoken so much about Smriti, and we know that she's the one who's going to be carrying this team in this tournament. So I think Pratika's inclusion and Pratika's partnership with Smriti is going to be one of the most important ones in this tournament, not just for India but across the tournament. I think across all teams also, this is probably going to be the most watched, looked out for partnerships. And given the fact that we've got such young players also and newer faces coming into this team, host nation, we've spoken about the fan situation, that fans will still turn up, and then as the games go on, we may expect more and more fans to come in, and the legacy of the previous tournaments also. What realistically are your expectations for India in this World Cup? Where do you think they'll realistically finish?
Uh, I could not get the last part. Where do you think?
Where do you think they'll finish realistically in the World Cup? Do you think they'll reach the final, win it maybe, or if they don't reach the final,
Acha,
where do you
okay.
think they'll end up?
About India's chances. Yeah. Now look, I have, my eyes on the game as well. Australia just won by 43 runs, and the way Healy reacted and the whole Australian team reacted, I mean, they are really happy to win this game. So it means, and you don't see Australia reacting this way unless they are playing the Ashes, right? But this reaction, I mean, it meant something to this team. This win meant something to Australia. It meant that India pushed them today, right? India did not win today. The target was stiff, but they scored 369 and they gave Australia a scare today. Healy, Gardner, Mooney, Perry, McGrath, all of them, they were health scared today. They were running around the field, they were talking to each other, they were trying to plan things around for every batter, right? But this was a series decider in a bilateral. India's performance in World Cups, even in group games, hasn't been the best. I will go back to the T20 World Cup last year. Again, India lost its first game to New Zealand and their net run rate took a hit. They played the next game against Pakistan. The target was small. The team did not went for the kill. Their first objective was to win the game. And then in the next game, look for bettering their net run rate, whatever it is. It's different matter that they lost to Australia and couldn't qualify at all. But the way they approached that game told me one thing, and it was that this is a safety first approach that this team is carrying. Right now, look at what current Bangladesh men's team is doing, and or rather what they did last year in the T20 World Cup. They were on the verge of qualifying for the first ever semi-final in a T20 World Cup, but they did not take the game on, and Afghanistan qualified. In the Asia Cup, right, they got a favor for Sri Lanka to qualify for the Super Four. But if you look at the game against Hong Kong, they again did not close out the game as early as they should have. They had the chance. They did not do that. Now, this Indian team, it also has that same mindset that first we need to win, right? So, if, and I feel like that mindset is a very defensive mindset because you already have told yourself as a team that you cannot achieve, you know, whatever you are set out to achieve, right? So if they go in with that mindset, I don't think India is going to go far. But if they show the courage that they've shown today, right? The way they've played today, the way Harman's played today, the way Deepti has played today, the way Sneh Rana played in the end, Smriti to kheli rahi hai. So if they show this kind of courage in the World Cup, they're definitely going to reach the semi-finals. But if they continue to play in the way they have played in previous World Cups, dar ke, with a defensive mindset, with the fear of failure, that okay, what if we fail? Then I don't see them winning against the top four sides, and they are South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, and England. I do not see them winning. They did not win last time in 2022, and they missed out on the semi-finals. West Indies qualified for the semis by beating New Zealand and England. India could not beat these four teams. So if they play with the same mindset, I don't think they are going to go reach the semis because again, the World Cup venues, that is also going to play a part.
So I think like in terms of like a template or a formula, right? Like I think they have to be beating Pakistan and Bangladesh pretty
Mike,
hands down. Like, they have to be beating. Yeah. Yeah, I think what you mentioned there, like they need to get the template right? They need to like be beating Pakistan and Bangladesh pretty handily, get that net run rate up. I think that is the first step. Then I think they have to be beating Sri Lanka also quite easily. Like I don't know about you, but I think Sri Lanka. Are we playing Sri Lanka in India or in Sri Lanka? In India. Okay. So
in India only.
that
in India.
yeah. So I think yeah, in India itself. So we have to be winning that game. Then yeah, we should be better than New Zealand. We should be better than New Zealand. I hope they beat New Zealand. And yeah, South Africa. That'll be a tough game. That should be an even game. But I think they should be able to beat England. I mean, I think other than Australia, they should be able to beat the other teams. It's just a matter of whether they're able to change their mindset and all that. Like what he said. Like, so what is your official?
No, look,
what do you think they will do? What will be the?
If you compare the teams, no, England hasn't
Yeah.
played any ODIs in India. So forget about playing in on other venues. They haven't played an ODI in India at all, right? For the
Yeah.
longest time. I can't remember the last time they played on a day. So their spinners, Sophie, then Lindsay Smith, even Sarah Glynn, who has a poor record against Indian ODIs in general, Charlie Dean, they haven't played ODI cricket in India at all. Luckily for Charlie Dean, she played a couple of games of 50 overs for England Day when they came here in 2023. It was, if my memory serves me right. So if you look at the top teams, right, the teams that I mentioned, England, South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand. So New Zealand will have that advantage that they played a series in India last year, right? So their their bowlers mainly because their batting lineup, they have a lot of experience. There is Maddie Green, there is Sophie Devine, there is Susie Bates, there is Emilia Kerr. So their batting has a lot of depth, and they're also playing in Abu Dhabi, unofficial warm-up games with England. So they have that experience of playing in India in Indian conditions, flat pitches. Basically, they know about that. England doesn't know about anything. South Africa has played. But then if you look at the South Africa's bowling, yesterday Pakistan came very close to chasing 313 in 46 overs, right? So South Africa's bowling is not that, you know, good. England, we know how pathetic they are as a fielding side, right? India beat England in England because India fielded better than England. I mean, I'm not going to talk about the fielding standards that they showed in this particular series in Australia, but the fielding standards that they showed against England in England was terrific. Each and everyone, Harleen, Jemima, Smriti, everyone was on top notch. They dropped a couple of catches like they have been doing for years now, but still the ground fielding was superb. When you look at the England team, even if you look at their 100 teams, when they play the 100, I mean, no one can catch a ball, no one can field. Ground fielding, catching, कुछ नहीं होता उनसे 100 में भी. So the culture of fielding is not non-existent in England, right? Overall, in England and Wales, Scotland में भी वही हाल है, Wales का भी वही हाल है. So they are very poor fielding side, very poor fielding team. So if India has to beat England, they just have to field well, field better than England, because I don't think England can challenge them as far as batting and bowling is concerned. If India fields well against England, India will win. Against South Africa, again, since they have a weak bowling lineup, if India goes with the mindset of, okay, we are going into this game and we are going to go with the flow and score 5 runs, 5.5 runs, 6 runs per over, then India is going to struggle because Tasmin Brits, Cap, and then Wolward, even Soon Lewis and Tryon, they are going to smack your bowlers as well because the conditions are flat. So the batters have potential, they have the experience, right? So India have to be very careful against those kind of bowling attacks where they feel that the bowling attack is weak and they can target certain bowlers, right? So if they do that against South Africa and against New Zealand as well, I think they will challenge them. But like I mentioned, if they go with the mindset of, प्रॉपर क्रिकेट हमको इसी अप्रोच से खेलना है, एक सेट टोन में खेलना है, 5 run per over, 6 run per over, that is, if they go that way, then I don't see them winning games. If they bat first, if they chase, they can overcome teams like Pakistan who will crumble under pressure, etc. But against better teams, I don't think they can chase even. So because again, the mindset comes into the play. Everything is about the mindset because this team is superb when you look at the talent that this team has. But the mindset thing, it is just not improving. Even after the WPL, people talked about it that WPL will improve, but no, it hasn't improved.
So, like, what's your official prediction? Are they entering the semis? Are they reaching the final? What is your official prediction? And while at it, if you want to give your prediction of the semi-finalists also, that would be great.
For India, my prediction.
I'm putting on the spot here. I understand.
Look, no, I mean, look, if Yashtika was still in the squad, no, things would have been different because I think Uma Chetri has taken up a spot and India is going with only 14 players in the World Cup. I don't think they're going with 15 players because Uma Chetri na to batter hai na to keeper hai. I saw her keeping in the Australia series. She was pathetic. I mean, she can't keep. Richa Ghosh, you've seen Richa Ghosh dropping sitters, dollies. Uma Chetri is worse than Richa Ghosh. So you do not have a keeper, nor do you have a spare batter. What she can do is she's very good when it comes to running, so she can field well. I hope that she's only needed as a fielder, not as a batter or a keeper, because then if it comes to that, then India will lose the World Cup even before playing any games, right? So that is one spot that I think the selectors have wasted on Uma Chetri. I think if they wanted someone in the squad, they could have picked Shefali Verma because Shefali can keep, and Shefali is as bekar keeper as Uma Chetri is. So you're not sort of getting anything. You were still getting a better batter at least, in your reserves. But with Uma Chetri, you are not getting anything. So that one spot is wasted. That is one. Second, you have picked Sharani as your left-arm spinner along with Radha Yadav. Now, if you look at Radha Yadav's record in ODI cricket, you will see that it's one of the poorest overall when it comes to the left-arm spinners operating in the world right now. Right? Look at England premier left arm spinner. It's Eccleston, right? Look at Australia. They will have Sophie Molyneux playing for them, right? Look at South Africa. They have Tyron, right? Look at Pakistan. They have Sadia Iqbal and Nasra Sandhu, right? So these are top teams, and Sri Lanka always have spinners. A lot of them. I can't recall their names, but yeah, they do. So and India will have Radha Yadav, who doesn't really have a great record, right? So and even if we watch her bowling today, she bowled filth, right? Down the leg, bowling full tosses, etc., etc. So if she has a day, yeah, she can pick a wicket or two. But other than that, she is a non-existent member as far as your team is concerned, right? Because she will bowl 3 over, 4 overs, 5 overs. That is it, and she won't give you anything. So that spot is gone. Charani, again, she can't bat. She just made her debut, and in flat conditions, the tri series that India played in Sri Lanka, she gave away runs at 6.57, right? She picked wickets, but she was giving runs at that 6.57. So even if your pacers do well, she will come on to bowl and she will leak runs, right? So I wasn't sure why she was picked ahead of someone like Tanuja Kanwan, who has experience playing in domestic cricket a lot, who has played across venues, who bats well. And Tanuja Kanwan actually did well for India in the Asia Cup last year, the T20 Asia Cup I'm talking about. And then she also had decent series in Australia against Australia A last year as well as this year, because she can bat, she's a good fielder, and she's a good bowler as well. And she brings different kind of variety when it comes to left arm spin, right? But again, छोड़ो वो तो pick नहीं हुई है. So overall, if I'm looking at the squad, there are a lot of things that lack. Deepti Sharma's form with the ball, it's not there. She hasn't picking a lot of wickets. With the bat, she has been superb this year. I have to say that. But with the ball, she hasn't been doing her job at all. So a lot of things need to go right for the Indian team, right? So if you look at uh, the underdog stories that we talk about, no, each and every team and different sports, if you look at, right, football, you look at cricket or, different sports, you will see that, okay, those teams had people who you knew can do the job for their team, right? But when you look at this team is still dependent on certain individuals to do the job for you on certain days. You need Smriti to come good. You need Harmanpreet to come good. You need Pratikar to form a good partnership at the top of the order with Smriti. You need Renuka Singh Thakur to pick those 2 wickets, right? So it's really about that. If they all come good in the World Cup, if they all do their job, like our team did in 2011, there are certain players who are in form going into that World Cup. If they do that, then I think they can play the semis. I still don't think they can go ahead as far as the finals is concerned. They can play the semis, but I'll say 35-75% as far as the semi-final chances are concerned. 35-65, because I feel like there are some really good teams, and the conditions and the ground dimensions that is going to play a very big role, because Ned Skyver Brunt is not going to miss out, in Indore in small ground 50 meter की boundary hai. She's going to, for a fact that if not Ned Skyver Brunt, you know that someone like, Dunkley will score there, because the ground sizes are peanuts, right? So same goes for any other team, South Africa, Australia, the bigger teams, right? You never know on what minds Sophie Devines comes out to bat and scores a fucking 150 balls, right? Because that ground, the DY Patil Stadium where the game is, that will suit her game. So yeah, I'm not very optimistic about the chances. I want them to do well, but I know for a fact that they are going to struggle. And Harman's fitness is an issue too, so that is also there. So for me, 35% they are going, 65% they're not going into the series.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty, I wouldn't say bleak note, but yeah, I think it's a very realistic prediction. I don't know about,
Mike.
yeah. I think that I wouldn't say it's bleak, but it's a pretty realistic expectation. I think you're keeping for everyone in mind. I think I think they're good enough to reach the semis, but I'm choosing to go with your little more of a you have a more depth in this, so I think I'm hoping you're wrong. Let me put it that way from what
I'm
Nice.
hoping I'm
Sai,
wrong.
you have any thoughts on this?
I'm hoping I'm wrong. I want them to win the World Cup for fuck's sake. But but they're better teams, and the
Yeah,
conditions. These
I
are the
know.
things that
I know.
that make me a bit skeptical about the chances. If this World Cup was being held in England, for me, India
Yeah.
were the favorites to win the World Cup. 50 over World Cup in England at this time with this team, this Indian team will win the
Hmm.
World Cup 90%. But in
Yeah.
India, no.
Yeah. The sad state of affairs, if you're saying that, especially for a home World Cup. But yeah, like I think you have anything to add, Sai?
No, no, I don't. We're good.
So yeah, like let's end this. I mean, I was hoping we'd end this episode on a more of a happy note, but let's let's just end it. So yeah, thank you, Kshitij, for joining us on this special episode, on the first episode of the series. And yeah, to talk about the Indian women's team, we spoke about a lot of stuff, about not just on the field aspects of it, so more importantly the off the field aspects of it, like with the marketing, the coverage, the awareness, which is like pretty lacking even though we're in 2025. So I think thank you for that, Kshitij. You've given a lot of insight on that. And yeah, please like, subscribe, and please drop a comment about how the episode is in the comments below. And yeah, thanks, and see you guys later in the next episode.